Welcome back to my channel. Depending on what you're here for, there are going to be many different topics that I'm going to go over. Today I want to talk about sort of my path with my family. I think a lot of us who are middle-aged and getting older see our parents aging. I know that my friends and I talk a lot about this. We talk a lot about what we're going to do, how to support our parents, how to ensure that they're financially able to live and be happy and be taken care of, because healthcare as well as support for aging people, ourselves included, gets more expensive as we get older. For me, my parents, they moved from the Midwest to the Southwest when I was a child, about 4 years old, with my brother and I. They were moving to a calmer place. They were taking up real estate, and they were very entrepreneurial. And they also owned a shop, a mom and pop store. None of it made tons of money. My brother and I grew up with the typical positive, negative dysfunction like everyone else. I can't say that we were anything unusual. As time went on and into adulthood, my brother and I both went to college. We both went into the technology industry. And my parents continued real estate. They did real estate for 50 years, into their 70s. They didn't feel like they had enough, so they had to keep working. I started seeing my parents age. Little things. I have lived in Ireland when I was younger, and they came and visited. I remember us walking around Dublin and my realizing that my mother and father couldn't keep up, and I had to start slowing down my pace. We don't realize that as small children, but when we're young adults and we start seeing our parents slow down, I think that's a concern. I think that's the first sign that they're getting older. It's kind of, for me, it was a shock to my system. Anyway, as time went on, I have a very close relationship with my parents. Spoke to my mother every day. She was my best friend. I looked up to her. We had great conversations. And she was the typical mother worried about me and everything that went on in my life. Unfortunately, my brother drifted away, wasn't really involved. But I started noticing that my parents were getting forgetful, that they were getting confused. Those bright, intelligent people who could navigate contracts, who could navigate a lot of things I saw most of my life, were more susceptible to confusion, forgetfulness. And once they got into their later years, I had to start helping them. I had to help them navigate the Medicare system, which, to be honest, makes me angry. Because if any of you have dealt with the Medicare system, it's confusing. And it gets worse as you get older. So here is an aging population whose cognitive ability is declining naturally. And they need health systems that work for them. And they need it to be clear and simple. And it's not. It gets more confusing. And like my parents, you can become susceptible to healthcare brokers and others preying on their confusion and their trusting nature. And so I had to help them navigate this as I got older and as they got older. And this became something of a role I took on, from being taken care of by my parents when I was young to a caretaker. And then later in the years, my mother developed cancer, about 5 years ago, liver cancer. And that took a whole new twist. I had to do a lot of research for her cancer because I wanted to make sure that we were getting the best treatment for her. And there were mistakes and there were confusion, and the information we received from doctors, hospitals, conflicted. And really I had to advocate for her. Meanwhile, the stress on my father was taking its toll as well. About 3 years ago, my mother went into immunotherapy, and she started taking immunotherapy, and for some people it's great, but immunotherapy takes a toll on the body. And I saw my mother physically get weaker and weaker. She lost her taste buds. She couldn't taste anything. She didn't like anything. And I really saw how it was affecting her. And then, of course, my father, who was aging and having challenges of his own, couldn't take care of her as well as he wanted to. And I didn't live locally, but I tried to spend as much time with them, communicate with them, help them out as much as possible. And I notice two things. One is we all age differently. I know people in their 90s who are doing amazing. My aunt lived to 110. My mother's mother lived into her late 90s. And my mother expected to live into her 90s. And she was only in her 80s at this time. And I also noticed that people take two different paths, at least in my opinion. One is they get angry. They get angry at aging. They get angry at how their physical body rejects them, or they lose control of their body and unable to walk, unable to be stable on their feet, and other things. And my mother got angry. She got very angry as time went on. And I wanted her to live her best life towards the end. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted to introduce new and good things so she could have experiences. My father, he was in a difficult position. He accepted getting older. And that's the second type of person. I think that some people accept that they're getting older and they make peace with it. And this is where I'd like to be in my life, is to make peace with aging and what the future holds for me. But my father was dealing with a mother who was not happy that she was aging, not happy that her body had cancer, and that she felt that she could do nothing about it. At a certain point, I investigated hospice. And there's so much around hospice that we are led to believe that are incorrect. First of all, one thing I did not know is that Medicare paid for in-home hospice. My mother and my father both went on to in-home hospice. And they paid for it. And people have different experiences with hospice personnel and companies, but the experience that we've had was amazing. The hospice company, the nurses, the coordinator, everyone was amazing, and they were there for my parents. And through all different stages, all the way up to when my mother passed, January 12th, 2025, they came directly to my parents' house to make sure that my mother had passed, and then handled the arrangements for the mortuary. There is a lot people don't know about hospice that really needs to be brought to light, and how it really supported my parents and really helped my father. The shock of my mother passing, because after the immunotherapy, we had her come off and she seemed to be getting stronger. Now, she still was using a walker. And at the time, I was dealing with cleaning out their house. And my mother was a hoarder. There was no gift wrapping paper she didn't love, or bubble wrap, or ribbons, or boxes. She felt it could all be used. And I found a closet filled with plastic bags. I kind of say, now I know why the earth hasn't healed. My mother was hoarding all these plastic bags. Anyway, I was cleaning out this big house while they were in there, and she fought me. I was in the garage and she came out with her walker and yelled at me that I couldn't throw things away until she was dead. So there's always this push and pull. You want to make your parents happy. You want to make sure that you're not causing them stress, but at the same time, it is really important that you know what you need to do around cleaning out the house, because later we would need to sell it so that they would have money to survive on. I read a really good book while I was heading to see them towards those final days. It was I'm having to get the name. It was The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. So one of the things that I knew I had to do was clean out the house. And I drove down from Washington State, and while I was driving, I listened to the audiobook, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. I'll leave a link below. And it really helped. It was really critical in me understanding how I needed to clear out the house, minimize the stress, and really face the inevitable. After my mother passed, my father went into his mourning, and I spent time with him. I came back from Portugal, which is where I was, and later in the year, and I had to start taking care of him because he couldn't move from the bed to the bathroom, or eventually the bed to the commode. So I wound up sleeping in the same room as him, and having to manage him and help him throughout the night, throughout the day. And then I started hiring people to come in to assist. And no one really tells you how expensive it is. You know it's expensive, but it was very expensive. Now I had to come back to Portugal to manage some immigration items, and it cost, just to have 24-hour care for my father, $25,000 a month. It's incredible. So eventually I wound up coming back and convincing my father to move into an assisted living, and I found an amazing place near his home where his friends could visit him, and he had his own apartment. And one of the things I really liked about this assisted living was it was a retirement community, but whether you were independent living or you were assisted living, you stayed in your apartment. You weren't taken out. And hospice still came and saw my father twice a week. And my father is now in the assisted living, and he's gotten stronger. He's made friends. He has 3 square meals a day that he doesn't have to worry about, and he enjoys them. He goes to play cards. It has allowed him to live his best life. And he's still going. And eventually I sold his house. And now I'm managing his money so that I can make sure that he has enough to last for whatever he needs. And again, he's not wealthy. So I'm sure I'm not alone in my experience. We, at our age, are often called that sandwich generation. Now, I don't have kids, and I feel for the people who are having to deal with both. And I wanted to make sure that my parents had an amazing end of life. And I think about what I could have done better for my mother. And I think about daily what I can do better for my father. And I speak to him every day. And we always end our conversations with "I love you," as I did with my mother. Because I don't want to regret that he didn't know how I felt about him. And we talk. And my father and I had conflicts growing up, and a lot of our lives, because unfortunately we're very similar. But after my mother passed, we made peace, and we made space for each other. And sometimes that is what you need to do to ensure that a relationship stays sane and is good, and you have good memories. So anyway, this was my story. I'm sure many of you have your own stories, similar what it's like to go from being a kid who was taking care of your parents to now taking care of your parents and being that caretaker and what you have to go through. Let's talk about it in the comments. If you like what I'm talking about, and I'll talk about a lot of things. I'll be talking about being an expat. I'll be talking about Portugal. I'll be talking about finance. I'll be honest about my financial history. If you like that and you feel like you are not hearing this kind of voice elsewhere, please subscribe. I would love to have you join in the conversation. Have a great day and take care.